Ну ты же мужик, правильно? Ты же, наверное, тебя понял уже. Надоел уже. Я тебе просто объясняю, тебе да заткнись, мразь, чтоб ты сгнил заново, да. Нет, я просто тебе говорю, что невозможно прожить без других людей. Понимаешь, да? И невозможно не делать куда-то, в никуда! Невозможно! Идиот. Кретин. Да, вот я понял. Ну да, ну он понял, про себя так говорит, да. Ну, значит, вот ты будешь теоретиком, вот я тебе объясняю, там, да, да, значит, ну, нет, я тебе, да, долгий разговор просто, да, потому что ты, ну, делаешь для себя, но чтобы покупали другие люди, да, типа того, да. Ну, наверное, как-то так, что тогда. Непонятно, ты меня не путай, я тебе просто объясняю, ты мне мозги не пудри, тут негде ошибаться даже, я понял уже, да. Ну вот и все, бегай за ними тогда, бегай тогда сам, вот и все, да, я понял, да. Ну, вот, я понял уже, да.
No longer give you a charger in the box. And every single one of these companies has said, we're doing this to protect the environment. But this got me thinking, is not giving a charger actually better for the environment? Because yes, on the face of it, of course, if everything else stayed the same, then shipping a phone without a charger means you can use a smaller box, and it also means one less plastic brick that might one day end up in a landfill site. And with this logic, you could look at Samsung's new Galaxy S21 Ultra box, compared to last year's S20 Ultra box, and think, wow, Samsung, you're so eco-conscious, it's half the size, what heroes. But not everything does stay the same. As soon as a company decides that they're not going to send a charger with their phone, it creates knock-on effects. Like, just for starters, I think it's going to mean a lot of people will end up buying their own. Think about it. One, if you just use your old charger, you're not getting the charging speed that you're paying for. I mean, to be honest, if you're using a 3-year-old brick, you're probably not even getting half of the charging speed that your phone is capable of. Two, chargers don't last forever. Like, aside from the fact that people lose them, if you just carry on using a charger that you've already been using for 3 years, for another 3 years, then there's at least a reasonable chance that something's going to go wrong with either the brick or the cable that's specifically made to fit that brick. And so, you might end up buying a new one anyways. And the third thing that I haven't really seen anyone talk about is that this whole concept of not giving someone a new charger, it rests on their ability to be able to use their old one. But I feel like the way it works in most households is when you buy a new phone, you sell or give away the old phone, including the charger that came with it. So, assuming that at some point within the 3 years or so that you use your new phone, you decide to buy a new charger for it, then straight away we have already used more packaging than the entire box of the last generation. Now, you might be looking at me thinking, well, don't be silly, this is tiny. But first of all, I've specifically picked this charger because it was the most compact packaging I could find. But secondly, if you open it up, you realise that to send something like a charger on its own, you need a lot of padding. So there's not just the cardboard outside, but a cardboard tray, a second layer of cardboard on the inside, not to mention a plastic anti-static bag. But most significantly, this. We've got to factor in not just the packaging that comes with the charger, but just all the extra environmental damage that comes with having a separate item that needs to be delivered. Like the fact that a van has to take one extra trip to come drop the item off with me. But also the fact that this means we have to have an entirely separate outer box that takes up even more room in that truck than the entire last phone's retail box. But it doesn't end there. Because in this whole frenzy of chargers getting removed, we've also silently lost the earphones we used to get. Now, if this S21 Ultra had a headphone jack, then fine, fair enough. I think the headphone jack has been around long enough that it's fair to assume you have a pair. But this doesn't have the headphone jack. How many people do you think just randomly have a pair of USB-C specific earphones lying around? The ones they would actually need for this? 5%? 2%? I mean, sure, wireless earphones are booming right now. I could always go out and buy a pair of Galaxy Buds Pro, but those are in a completely different price bracket. And so the solution for a lot of people is going to be, okay, I'm going to go onto Amazon.com and I'm just going to buy the cheapest USB-C earphones that I can find. So that is what I searched for. And I did find a pair that had some nice compact packaging, but it was out of stock, so really just to demonstrate my point, I ordered the normal headphone jack version of those same earphones. And this is what I got. Let me be very clear. This is how the last gen earphones were presented when they came in the box. This is now pretty much one of your best options. Not only do I now have a worse earphone experience than I would have had before, I'm not getting that special AKG tuned sound that I used to get, but more importantly, I probably used 3 times as much packaging than if that stuff was just included in the original box. And do you want to know the worst part of this? That is what Amazon delivered these earphones to me in. And inside of it, to pad the whole thing up, plastic. Like, yes, to be clear, Amazon does try to deliver in as few deliveries as possible. And they do try to have an outer box that roughly matches what comes inside of it. But the very fact that Amazon handles so many different types of items means that they can't possibly optimize the packaging as much as, say, Samsung could. Because when Samsung sends out a phone, it's going to be the same size every single time. So they can come up with a system that means you use very little cardboard. If everything you need for your phone comes in one single package, then yes, that box is bigger. And yes, not everyone is going to use every single thing that comes inside of it. But just because of how snugly you can fit these bits together, because of how each piece no longer needs its own separate packaging, and because it can all be delivered in one trip, I'd still be willing to bet that on average, this is still better for the environment. I'm kind of curious. Do you think if I told people that subscribing to a channel was eco-friendly, they would do it? I don't know. But what I do think is that this is only the start of it. I reckon that within a year or two, a lot of companies are going to stop even including free cases for the same reasons. You're probably starting to get the picture. If they do that, 4 sets of packaging, 4 separate delivery trips. Now, don't get me wrong, sustainability is good. We need to look after our planet. But what kind of makes this move in particular sting a little is the fact that it is not the best move for the planet, more on that in a minute, but also 2, the contradiction. Like, take Samsung. Within 1 day of Apple saying that they were no longer going to give a charger, Samsung came galloping out of the woodwork saying, Apple, how could you? Don't worry guys, we got you. If you buy a Galaxy, you'll get a charger. Team Samsung. Xiaomi was basically the same. Don't worry guys, we didn't leave anything out of the box of the Mi 10T. You can count on us. Now, if these companies, they genuinely believed what they were saying, and they were preaching the fact that something that they're choosing to do is better than something someone else is choosing to do, then it's not a good look when they start copying them literally on their next phone. I think the strategy behind this was, let's hope people react badly to not having a charger. Let's hope everyone boycotts Apple, and if they do that, they'll come running to us. But as soon as these companies found out that the iPhone 12 sold fine, they were like, fine, looks like we can get away with it too. Let's just delete our old post and pretend it never happened. Samsung actually did that. And so, from this perspective, you can kind of cut Apple a little bit of slack, because at the very least, they were being consistent. Apple has almost built a reputation for doing this kind of thing, just trimming what they deem as unnecessary.
Courage.
And Apple has never put a lot of weight on chargers. That's been very evident from how far behind they were versus the competition, and they've never said their phones were great because they came with chargers. And so, even though this was a controversial decision, it at least with Apple felt purposeful. But Apple has a different issue. They say they're removing the charger to help the environment, but some of their other actions kind of seem to go in the opposite direction to that. Like how the cable you get in the iPhone 12 box doesn't fit the old charger. So if you want to use the new cable, you've got to get a new charger. Or 2, how they're the same company who, for almost 10 years, have insisted on using their own lightning ports instead of the USB-C that the entire rest of the industry has moved towards, which has resulted in a whole load of Apple accessories that can't be used with Android, and a whole load of Android accessories that we can't use with iPhones. And then, there's MagSafe. Apple is strongly promoting the fact that their new iPhones can charge wirelessly using this snap-on attachment. And it's looking pretty likely that from the iPhone 13 onwards, you might have to charge like this, because the phones may not even have physical ports at all. Again, I'm sure Android phones will follow suit with this, but the point is that MagSafe, and wireless charging in general, flows in the opposite direction to eco-friendliness. Because not only do you have to buy MagSafe as a separate item with its own box, But even that doesn't come with a charger, though you would need to get the right speeds from it. That's sold as an extra to the extra. And most importantly, wireless charging is inefficient. Because you've got to pass power through 3 or 4 layers of material, you have to basically create an electromagnetic field just to get it across. And by transferring energy like this, a lot of it ends up as a byproduct. Heat. I was reading an article the other day from Eric on debugger.com, and he found that he was using up 47% more energy to fully charge his phone using wireless tech. And when you think that you're charging your phone possibly every single day for potentially 3 years that you might use it, that is going to add up big time. Not to mention how he also found that some wireless chargers were actually sipping power whilst not even actually charging anything. So 24 hours a day, energy is being wasted. Now, to be fair to MagSafe, it is about as good as wireless charging gets. It has magnets in the system to mean that the coils can line up as efficiently as possible, but compared to wired charging, it's still not very good. So, what I'm trying to say here is that, yes, companies want to be green, but what we need to bear in mind is that they only want to be green in so much as it makes them profit. And so, as long as people feel bad about the state of the planet, and so they feel good about buying apparently eco-conscious products, I think we'll be seeing a lot of these kinds of decisions being made. And that's fine. This is how businesses work. But what I do think is disingenuous about this whole no charger situation, is that the way it's being sold to us is not factoring in all the knock-on effects it creates. Like, it's very easy for the company to say, we've made our boxes this % smaller, and so we've reduced our carbon footprint by this much. But that's just a thing. They've reduced their carbon footprint. I'm sure that from a company perspective, this looks great on paper. It looks like they're saving the planet. But all that's really happening is that that carbon footprint is being shifted to the consumer, who now has to potentially go out and buy their own charger, potentially even their own earphones, all of which have to have their own set of deliveries and their own set of packaging. Okay, so the only thing left to answer is, was there a better way of doing this? I think so. I think a much more eco-friendly approach to this would have been to, instead of dishing the charger, to improve the charger. How? Better materials. We've already actually started seeing chargers based on gallium nitride, which, because it's more efficient, can deliver the same output by using fewer materials and fitting into a smaller brick. So much smaller that you could realistically have a pretty powerful 30-watt charger that actually fits into one of these new slim boxes. And I guess the most important aspect of gallium nitride is that every time you charge your phone using it, it's actually wasting less energy. Gallium nitride chargers are up to 25% more energy efficient than just using a normal silicon charger that you might have lying around, which means it could be up to 70% more efficient than using the wireless chargers that we are getting currently pushed. Not to mention, the byproduct of these being more energy efficient means that with a gallium nitride charger, there is less heat generated, and so they have a longer lifespan too. So, using these kinds of chargers and actually working to make them even better is what I see as a sustainable future. Now, to give Xiaomi a bit of credit, even though they did drop the charger for their China phones, for the international version of the Mi 11, which they literally announced 2 days after I filmed the rest of this video, they are not just including a charger, but including a 55-watt gallium nitride charger, which is great. So even though this will probably be one of their last phones with a brick, at least it means that people will have this good quality brick now to use with all their future phones. Okay, thank you so much for watching. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Наоборот, просто, да. Наоборот, What is that?
Liebe Anlegerinnen, liebe Anleger, ich muss Ihnen etwas gestehen. Ja, ich beschäftige mich mit Aktien und anderen lukrativen Investments. Mittlerweile bin ich sogar ein richtiger Börsenfan. Dabei bin ich auf Alexander von Parseval gestoßen und sein...
This this is my most expensive unboxing ever, because in front of us right now are 12 super limited edition smartphones, starting at $700, going all the way up to almost 170,000. So surreal to say. But even at the lowly $700, you can still get something pretty special. So you might have heard of the Oppo Reno 4 Pro. It's a pretty standard upper mid-range phone, but for the limited edition, Oppo partnered with Pantone, who are like the colour company, to create a green glitter version. And providing you like the colour, you really have to like this colour. I think the packaging is beautiful. It's lightly textured on the outside, but also this whole glowing green theme they've got going on, it's everywhere. It's in every insert, it's on this rather unusual case you get inside, it's on the USB-C cable. The earphones, they catch light in a really mystical way, even the charger. On the front it has the Pantone branding, and on the back, green glitter. Great success! As for the phone itself, there was a lot going on. It's kind of amazing, this silky matte finish, paired with all these little green flourishes, the buttons, the text. They've even changed the colour of the side rails, the antenna bands, and the inside of the USB-C port, just to fit the theme. Only thing is, that's a lot of text. I think in the pursuit of trying to make something that feels limited and special, Oppo's kind of left elegance and subtlety at the doorstep. But this was Oppo in 2020, and I would argue that it's taken them till this year to finally nail this concept of experimental colour. So, this is the rather elegantly named Oppo Reno 5 Pro Plus 5G Artist Limited Edition. I feel like at that stage, why not just call it Reno 5 Max and be done with it? But this phone changes colour. The packaging is immediately striking. I feel like with limited editions, the default option is to go down the route of luxury, but this one's just more quirky. It doesn't come with any gold-plated accessories or super high-end materials, but the visual design here is so unique. That's what makes Oppo's limited editions so fun. Like, it really looks like they've just handed their phone to an artist and said, you want to paint something on it? Knock yourself out. And here's the magic. Thanks to electrochromic glass, which uses energy to change the physical arrangement of the molecules, with just 2 taps on the back, we can shift colour. That's so cool. Like, could you imagine a few years down the line being able to just swipe on your phone and cycle through till you get the exact finish you want? It does make you wonder what a $170,000 phone is going to look like, though. Now, for $50 more than that, is a phone that means business. You might have heard of Red Magic. They make high-end gaming phones that don't cost a leg. I've got their latest Red Magic 6 here, which is their 2021 offering, with all the bells and whistles, like world's smoothest 165Hz display, and 7 separate cooling mechanisms all meshed together. But, for the purposes of this video, the one that we're actually interested in is a special edition version of their last phone, the Red Magic 5G. And what makes this noteworthy is that this is a transparent phone. We've seen transparent phones before. They often use these kind of fake components just beneath the glass because, well, the real components don't look that great. But the one difference here is that this phone has a fully working fan. So, this is a fog machine. It's fully loaded up with fog juice. So, if we turn that on, you should be able to see how the air is coming in, being used to cool the internals, and then getting pushed out on the other side. You could say it's red magic. The effort is definitely here. The software is heavily customized, the keyboard feels like it's from an alien planet, and they've even created a wallpaper that allows you to see the fan in action on the front too. A bit tacky in my opinion, but I appreciate the effort. Okay, picture this. It's 2016. Samsung's announced the Galaxy S7 Edge. It's high-end, it's got these new exciting curved edges. It's regarded by most as the best smartphone the world has ever seen. And then they one-up themselves again by launching the Injustice edition of that phone. I wanted this thing so badly, so the fact that I finally managed to get one is kind of surreal. Sadly it isn't sealed, but it was as close as I could get. The first thing you see is an enormous bat signal logo. Proper metal job. It was as close as I finally managed to get one. It's kind of surreal. Sadly it isn't sealed, but it was as close as I could get. The first thing you see is an enormous bat signal logo. Proper metal job this. There's a thick Batman case. We've got the phone, which I'll get to in a sec, and a Gear VR headset. At the time, this thing was Samsung's vision of the future, but it just never quite took off. VR is expensive. It's kind of an isolating experience. And I guess just the idea of sticking one of these on in public, like Samsung was promoting, just felt a bit awkward to people. On one hand, I'm looking at this thing thinking, what a phone, this is so cool, and just marveling at all the little Easter eggs hidden in the software, but the other part of me is thinking, this feels so old. And even though I can distinctly remember the feeling of looking at this like it was the pinnacle of cutting edge, I can't help but look at it now through my 2021 lens, just like it belongs in a museum somewhere. But that's just the beauty of how fast things are moving. Pretty exciting. But on the subject of Samsung, they've started doing something pretty clever recently. So you know how you can buy a Samsung phone almost anywhere, right? At Walmart, at Flipkart, at Tesco. That's intentional. It means that Samsung has the best possible reach. However, in Samsung's ideal world, all the customers who could would actually buy direct from them. Because that way they can charge the same price, but not have to pay all these retailers a second extra cut. So, Samsung have started encouraging that in a not so subtle way by giving free bonuses like earphones and Google Play credit, and now also exclusive limited edition color variants. They take at least 2 weeks to deliver because they are made to order. And for the S21 Plus this year, they've designed a color variant that when I saw for the first time I was like, we've got to get this on the channel. Because I love it, I've showed it to 2 other people, they hate it, so I want to know what you think. The box is identical to the other normal variants. This isn't like some super high effort luxury edition, but look at this.
Машина, хочу машину у себя, машина хочу. Наоборот, ну да.
Я всегда любил фантастику. Мне так хотелось
QIWI-Wallet.
почувствовать себя первооткрывателем, исследующим рубежи космоса.
Блин, как этот дебилоид вообще? Это как так?
дала мне эту
Ты
возможность.
это слышишь, да? Там тикает постоянно.
Здесь у меня есть устройство маскировки и зонды для сканирования неизведанных уголков космоса. Я могу побывать в неизведанных местах, полных тайн и опасностей, и найти ценные древние реликвии давно исчезнувших цивилизаций. Можно даже исследовать червоточины. Никогда не знаешь, куда они тебя приведут. Вы можете наткнуться на активный пульсар или магнитар, или черную дыру, окруженную багровым горизонтом событий. В такие моменты понимаешь, насколько далеко ушел от родных звезд своей домашней системы. Это невероятное чувство. Ты будто живешь на самом краю Вселенной. Конечно, всегда есть риск наткнуться на другого игрока, который охотится на исследователя. Однако, даже если вас обнаружили, если вас раскрыли...
Сколько часов ты там провел, сколько денег ты... Какой смысл? Ты смотри, ты оттуда ешь, и чё, какой смысл? Свою реальность, да, я понял.
They call it
То есть ты
Phantom
остался
Direct,
вообще, да.
and it's pretty much everything I want in a phone finish.
Ну да, понял.
It's jazzy and fun, without
Так надо
looking.
деньги тогда зарабатывать там, да, понимаете, да. Что как бы, мавитон какой-то, да, типа. То есть как бы не то, что даже вторяк. Как, ну понимаешь, да. Но тогда надо, нет, такие игры не задуманы, чтобы ты там жил просто, понимаешь? Тебе надо именно там, да, и они дырки, и они там вообще просто, да, типа того, religious, вообще просто, типа, delicious, да, понимаешь? Да. Не, про это как-то стрёмно, да, мавитон, согласен. Ну я вообще в целом говорю, ну это прикольно же. У меня такая задумка вообще просто, да. Ну вот это то же самое, то есть людям делать, ну понятно, я про себя вообще говорю, да, меня. Ну что ты будешь грабарик говорить, наоборот, ты просто про себя говорил, это да. Но они себя не нашли в реальном мире, и пошли туда, да. Просто как бы им самому было не по мышлению. Это нормально, да. Только ты все равно никуда не денешься. Диссонанс, то есть это с реальностью, так сказать, с действительностью. Да. А тебе еще встретиться с болезнью, ну, много с чем интересным предстоит, да. То есть, как бы, как минимум. Ну, смотри, говорит, ну, не обязательно даже так, а просто к тому, что можно лучше, да. То есть выбрать самому можно, да. Типа, ну, так это нет, это понятно. Я, кстати, я буду представить сами лицом, да.
The matte texture is ripple and also keeps us all clean. there's no flexing at all in the body, and they still manage to get that complex light refraction that gives it an extra aesthetic layer. Also, this feels like a weird thing to say, but this is one of my favourite phones ever from a bezel perspective, because it's still one of the only devices on the market where the screen feels like it's evenly stretched around the canvas of the phone. So there's no weird jutting corners or thick chins. It's just pleasant
Я не знаю,
design.
смотри, если это замужняя девушка, замужняя, да, она понимает, а наоборот, так, ладно, это не касается.
Moving up the price meter, I think they've done something even more interesting with the exclusive version of their S21 Ultra. You've probably seen a fair bit of this black one, maybe also the silver too, because these were the ones sent to reviewers. But as a consumer, if you go through Samsung's own store, you can find something called Phantom Brown, which, I mean, I don't think the words phantom and brown belong in the same sentence, but the end result is a phone unlike anything I've ever seen before. You see, on one hand, it's just brown. It's not one of those super vibrant colours that you usually associate with wowing people, but when was the last time you saw a brown phone? And I actually think this soft phantom glow, paired with the carbon fibre themed camera setup and the black rail that goes all the way around the sides, it sneaks up on you a bit. It feels surprisingly distinct. I feel less like I'm holding an official Samsung product and more like one of those fan-made concepts, but in a good way. Now, you might have heard of Harrow, but in a Samsung product, and feels the associate. See, on one hand, the end result is a phone unlike anything I've ever seen before. The same sentence, but the end result is a phone unlike anything I've ever seen before. See, on one hand, it's just brown. It's not one of those super vibrant colours that, and the black rail, surprisingly distinct concepts, but in a good way. You might have heard of Harrods. They call themselves the world's leading luxury department store, and they built a bit of a reputation for selling things like a $160,000 golf putter, a $200,000 bottle of perfume, and a $1 million advent calendar. So, compared to that, this feels like a bit of a bargain. Inside this box is the $2,000 Harrods limited edition iPhone 5S. And given that there were literally 3 of these on the Harrods limited edition iPhone 5S, bargain. Inside this box is the $2,000 Harrods limited edition iPhone 5S. And given that $2,000 Harrods limited edition iPhone 5S. And given that there were literally 3 of these on the entire internet, and that the 5S is pretty much my favourite iPhone ever, I had to get this. It's a seriously heavy-duty wooden package. It even needs a key to open it, although this feels more like a gimmick than security. And here we have it. So on the left is what looks like a gold USB stick. Not the most inspired design, I've got to say. But then the phone itself. Yep. To be clear, I'm not a particularly showy person. So this whole idea of like sticking 1,000 Swarovski crystals on something and then plating the rest in 24 karat gold, it kind of horrifies me. But the level of precision here